I'm thrilled to be able to call this man a friend for as long as I have. He's one of the all-time great football players that I was able to cover and get to meet. And he's joining us on behalf of the new CBD company, Green Eagle. He is none other than Hall of Famer Brett Favre. How are you, Brett?
Rich, I'm good. And I picked Shawshank Redemption.
Is that your choice? That's your choice? Shawshank. What do you like about Shawshank, Brent?
That's hard to beat. Everything.
Right?
From start to finish, I mean, you were hanging on the edge of your seat. So, he's had some great movies, but I think that one is number one. That's a top 5 movie for, regardless of genre.
So, okay, I got to go here then. Brett Favre, your top 5 movies. You're on a desert island. You know you're going to the desert island. You could bring 5 movies with you, and this is what you're going to watch until you're rescued. What are those 5 movies, Brett?
In no particular order, Lone Survivor, Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, The Judge.
The Judge.
And it's a toss-up between, like, Forrest Gump, Castaway, 13 Hours to Benghazi.
Well, so you're a Hanks.
Hard to pick 5.
You're a Hanks guy. There's a lot of Tom Hanks in there.
I love Tom Hanks. I love Tom Cruise. I love Morgan Freeman, Richard Gere, Kevin Costner. Some of those old movies, Primal Fear, The Bodyguard. Those guys are classics.
So
Robert De Niro, Al Pacino.
Did you ever meet these guys? Have you ever met any of these guys? Because you just named a bunch of football fans too, Brett.
No, I never have. I'd love to meet them. I'd love to meet each and every one of them. I take that back. I did meet Kevin Costner in the locker room after a Giants game. And a funny story, this was in New York. We won the game. My dad was in the locker room, and Kevin Costner, I don't know what he was doing in there, but he came in and said hello. And I was sitting, and my dad kind of just turned and saw him, and he's like, "Holy shit, the postman!"
The postman?
And I was like, I didn't know what I had no clue what my dad. I didn't see the movie. I didn't know, and so I'm like, "Dad, what are you doing?" Of all the movies, the postman.
That's amazing.
The postman.
Classic. I'm like, Dad, would you shut up?
So
Kevin seemed to get a kick out of it.
I'm sure he did. So maybe did you reach out to anybody acting wise to prepare for your role in Something About Mary, Brett, or you just relied on your own instincts for that one?
But I wish I would have. I tell people all the time. I said, I should win an Oscar for that because they told me to act stiff and nervous.
Well, you nailed it. You nailed it as Brett Favre. That's an all-time great. Brett Favre here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk a little bit of football before we get into Green Eagle here a little bit. I think maybe last we spoke on this show, it was right after Jordan Love got drafted, and you were recounting a conversation that you had with Aaron Rodgers about that drafting and about how it might manifest itself this year. And my gosh, Aaron has shown up maybe playing the best football he's ever played, Brett. And he came on here, he said that he's at peace. He used the phrase at peace about where he is in his career. I wonder what your thoughts are on the start of Rodgers, the Packers, prior to visiting Tom Brady this week.
Well, I think I totally agree with you, Rich. I think he's playing. It's hard to say he's playing his best football ever because he's played so well for so long. But I really believe he's elevated his team. I can't say that statistically he's that much better, but I think he's about as good as you can get. But more importantly, he's elevated the guys around him to close to his status, and they're playing outstanding. I don't want to say look unbeatable, but as close to unbeatable, it's kind of frightening. Because you say if you're a Packers fan, can we get any better? We almost have nowhere to go but down. Now, I don't think that they will. I'm just saying that that's kind of where they are right now. And, I think Aaron has always done a great job, and I believe that the greats do this as well as anyone, find the motivation when it seems like there's none out there. You've done it all, you've seen it all, you've experienced it all. So what drives you? And I think Aaron does a great job of finding that motivation, whether it be drafting a young quarterback and not drafting a player that could help him, this year. Whatever that may be, he's found a way to channel that into motivation and play as well as he's ever played.
And I know, that is a motivating factor, one would think. When I did have him on, he said that he's just been working on himself this offseason, and it doesn't seem, at least he's not saying that the Jordan Love drafting has sparked this, but it seems that it might have. Brett, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it probably did, but I think maybe not in the way that most people would assume, not in the sense that, I'm going to be replaced, but more so from, I was hoping for a little help offensively. I think that's probably more where the motivation would come in, not I can't believe that they drafted someone to take my position. And I assume that most people think that would be why he'd be motivated. I mean, he's got nothing to fear. So that's certainly not the issue.
And you visited Tampa last month on behalf of NFL The Grind, the show that I host on Epics with NFL Films, and I appreciate that you were in the Tampa Bay, the Tom Brady face on the Buccaneer. And what do you think of Brady right now entering this game at 3-2? I know you had some comments about potentially the Arians-Brady relationship and Arians' public commentary of Tom. Do you think that there's any issues there, or where do you think the state of Brady is entering this contest right now, Brett Favre?
I think that there's no issue whatsoever between Tom and Bruce. And there wasn't at that point either. I just found it a little odd that he would call Tom out. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, or it's going to piss Tom off. They may have even talked about it prior to that coming out. But I think, and people may look at it differently, but I believe that 3-2, regardless of the record, let me back up, regardless of their record, whether it be 5-0, 3-2, whatever, I think that Tom has played exceptionally well, considering he's had no offseason, no preseason, little to no work to gain chemistry. And as you know, Rich, I mean, that's huge, for the teams that are pretty much have been together. The schemes and things like that have been in place. You don't really miss out that much from a preseason standpoint. The only people that usually miss out or have missed out with this craziness would be the rookies and free agents changing over to a new team or being drafted or picked up by a team that you're totally unfamiliar with. And that's really what Tom is experienced as he is. That helps to a certain extent, but you still have to get familiar with your new plays, the guys running them, how they run routes. Those guys have to get used to how your cadence, every cadence is different. Throwing styles, what your do's and your don'ts, your likes, your dislikes, and to be able to do that on the fly, like day one. I mean, their first preseason game was opening day against the Saints, and those guys have to realize that Tom's going to stay in the pocket, and he's going to. All he needs is a little nudge here or there, and what that nudge is and where that nudge needs to be is something you got to figure out, and they're figuring it out. So I think up to this point, he's played exceptionally well.
Where do you stand on the subject, Brett Favre, of Drew Brees, the national conversation about his arm strength and his age and him not having as much command of an offense that we're used to seeing, even though he's without his top receiver for the last month. Where do you stand on that subject?
Well, I think it's ridiculous, to be honest with you, because Drew's never had a strong arm. Obviously, he hasn't been 40 years old forever, but that's the first thing that everyone points to. I think 10 years from now, the 40-year-old excuse will not be used anymore because you'll see more and more guys playing into their 40s. But it seems to be the popular excuse to make that a player's in his 40s and therefore he shouldn't be able to play at a high level, and that's what's wrong with Drew Brees, that's what's wrong with Tom Brady, so on and so forth. I think it's absolutely ridiculous because neither one of their games relies on tremendous arm strength or mobility. I think there's a lot of factors that go into success or lack of success, and neither of which has anything to do with arm strength or age.
So let's talk about Green Eagle, Brett Favre. You are now the official brand ambassador. For those who need to know about this and what it does for you, it's the new CBD company. I give you the floor here on this.
Yeah, if you and I would have been talking a year ago, just in general, and you'd have said, "Hey, you ever think about getting in the CBD world?" It's everywhere. I see signs, I see stores. Like everyone else, I'd have said absolutely not. I never was a marijuana guy, never will be. But here I am, and I have to admit I was wrong in my perception of the CBD world. That's not to say that you can't get something with THC or I say this jokingly, but laced brownies or whatever. That's not my thing. Never has been. So when I was approached by Green Eagle and their CEO Joseph, I asked him those questions. I said, "Hey, I spent 75 days in rehab. I actually went to rehab 3 times, but one time the longest stint was 75 days." And it was due in part to an addiction to painkillers. And, the last thing I want to do is be a spokesman for anything that's addictive. And he said, absolutely 100% drug-free. And more or less, for lack of a better description, the hemp plant is a lot like aloe. It has a lot of healing qualities. And so I was convinced that he was legit and his company was legit and that they had a solid product. I said, I need to try it. And I was training for a half marathon at the time, used the product on just general aches and pains. Some days I felt fine, didn't need it. Other days maybe a knee was sore or a quad or, just typical stuff. And I would use it and I'll be honest with you, I was really shocked. I shouldn't say surprised. It was more shocked that it worked because I'm kind of a tough sell on things like that. Mm-hmm. And so when it worked, I said, "Hey, I'm all in." And I've given numerous friends and members samples, and I'm not going to tell you their description of what they thought of it, but it was positive. Like this blank works. and that's really kind of my mindset too. I couldn't believe it. It actually works, and so I certainly don't want to be a part of anything that doesn't work, and this works, and it's drug free, and it's for everybody.
Green Eagle, again, it's a wellness solution, as you mentioned, infused with hemp-derived CBD, 100% free of THC, and we're looking at you, wearing a Green Eagle T-shirt, and I think there's another photograph that we're putting up there of you holding the Green Eagle product. If I'm not mistaken, is that a blonde eagle holding up the product right there? Did you do
that
something?
That was the height of the quarantine.
Okay, right.
My daughter and 2 of her classmates, friends, dyed my hair.
Yep. That's what it looks like. So you gotta. Is it still like that right now, Brett? You still, tinting the front?
No, it went back to its natural color, gray.
Okay. Speaking of which, have you seen Steve Mariucci showing up on NFL Network? He's like Bob Barker. One day he's not gray, next day he's all gray. Did you notice that, Brett? You check that out?
He's a cross between Bob Barker, Al Pacino. Who else? I'm trying to think of, but he's got a little bit of that mafia in him.
He's got a De Niro thing too. I agree with you. I agree with you. Hey, before I let you go, Brett, with Brady and Rodgers facing each other this week, we in the media are all going to be hyping it up, and for good reason. I mean, they're two 12s and they're two greats. They're both going to have busts in the same room that yours is currently residing in, that beautiful spot in Canton, Ohio. Obviously they're going to be in the field at the same time, but when you are of this stature going into a game of where somebody else of that stature is on the other side, do you think about it? Do you even spend a minute leading up to the game thinking about it, and then knowing that you have to bring a certain game coming up? Do you do that?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I don't think you dwell on it. I obviously I am speaking for those guys, but I'm really not, because I don't know exactly what they're thinking, nor will I ever. But I know the competitive side of that position and stature, and you certainly are aware of it and want to outduel your opponent. But you also know that you're not playing against that particular player. You're playing against their defense. I think more than anything, you'd rather get a win than better statistics.
I hear you. Was there anybody that you used to face off that it was like that? Anybody that came close to it for you?
Well, for me, neither one were in my division, but same conference. There was Troy Aikman and Steve Young. Troy, I could never beat. I wasn't trying to beat him, but Troy was as flawless as you can get, and they ran the ball like crazy, and their defense was just outstanding. Now, I had a tremendous amount of respect for Troy and his team, and still do. But Steve Young was about as flawless as you could get in a crazy way. It may be an unbelievable run. It could be, but to outduel either one of those guys would have been nothing short of amazing. But to get one of them at least, and I got a tremendous amount of respect for Steve Young. I mean, what a hell of a player he was. So I knew more so against Steve that I had to match him play for play. Troy, not so much, because he had so many weapons around him. But I was fortunate enough to win a few against Steve and went 0 for against Troy.
Brett, always love chatting. You take care of yourself. Best to your family. You be well,
Thanks,
sir.
Rich. Always good talking with you.
You got it. Hey, Brett. Before I got one last one for you. The rookies that you're seeing out there.
Yeah.
Herbert, Burrow, anybody else? What you're seeing out of these guys and the hits that they're taking. Anybody impress you, particularly out of the rookies?
I have to admit, I'm not as much surprised by Burrow. I felt like he's a little bit older, a little bit seasoned. Last year, kind of, I think prepared him for the big. In fact, I think he kind of took a step down as far as the big stage, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Herbert, on the other hand, is kind of an unknown, but is quickly coming on the scene. I'm more surprised by his play. Not that I thought he would play bad, but I mean, he looks outstanding. Burrow is playing about what I thought he would play, and that's pretty damn solid.
I know, and he came out. He almost, his first start was at the last second, and he almost beat Mahomes and your guy Andy Reid. So that's pretty big. And now Andy's got. I think
if both those guys stay healthy, they'll be good for a long time.
Right, and then Andy's wearing the visor over his face. I think that's the closest he's ever been to a salad bar. Don't you think, Brett?
I have to admit, I agree. I knew
you'd like that line.
Yeah, I love it. That's beautiful. Andy will love that. Trust me.
That's as close as he's ever been to a salad bar. You take care, Brett. You be well.
All right, Rich, you too.
Right back at you. That's Brett Favre. At Brett Favre on both Twitter and Instagram. And he's here courtesy again of the new CBD company, Green Eagle. He's the official brand ambassador. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the blonde, man.
I noticed that, too. I was kind of glad you brought that up.
It's kind of Wesley Snipes-like, right?
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man.
Yeah.
Little Demolition Man. You like that video? Of course you did. Check out more right here.